Alright, hey everybody, and welcome to the first Coalition review, if you want to call it. I guess overview is a better term. As I said, if you want, I'll plan or I will do this, at some point. I'm not gonna spam the next 3 weeks with countless Coalition overviews for the 1991 mod, but every now and then, if I feel like it, I'm gonna fit one in here and there. Now before I get further into it, I haven't played a whole lot of the mod still, but Landjut, the new Landjut, is definitely the deck that I had the most experience with. And of course, things can and will change. Although for Blue 4, especially when it comes to the specializations, they are already significantly more advanced, I guess you could say, than Red 4 decks. Just as an example, the M84A, for example, or the M84 is only available in Armored. Yugoslavia, Red Dragons, and a couple of other decks, they still use the vanilla specialization. Not coordination, but designation. In terms instead of the new modded one, if you want to call it that way. For example, the Leopard 2A4 is available in mechanized and in motorized, stuff like that. So that's why until at least Citizen, I probably will not cover these nations, if I even get that far in terms of 1991 mod videos. Who knows? The other thing is, as you might have seen, Landjut now contains 3 nations, West Germany, Denmark, as before, as well as Benelux, which formerly Netherlands, Benelux consisting of Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg. Yeah, and the Dutch-German core is gone. Currently, there is no coalition to replace it. There used to be F North, which I believe is Norway and USA, if I'm not wrong. Apparently a broken coalition. So I don't know what will fill that, but you'll see. Yeah, I think that's all that has to be said for that. For now, I will go over the units nation by nation. For now, I'll try to not get in too deep. For one, because again, I haven't played as much, but two, since 95% or even more of the units got changed, discussing every unit would take a bit too much time. So yeah, let's get into it. So for Germany, Group, I think relatively normal. The CH-53 transport now has an entry 3. A lot of helicopter transports, not all of them though. I'm not sure if that's an oversight or intentional, but a lot of them also have 1 HE now, so they're not completely useless. They're now just somewhat useless. Yeah, and helicopter transports, especially when they're unarmed, are also quite a bit cheaper. 10 points for a Huey. It's obviously still not, in most scenarios, not nearly as nice as like a Fuchs, but at least they're not completely bad anymore. You'll also see a couple of new transports, like the Bow, for example. It's unarmed, but it's also a bit faster and it's smaller. Yeah. Also, CVs, especially like low-end CVs or basic CVs, are a bit cheaper. The FIFU, for example, only 5 points more, and it also has the same availability with 6 per card. 6 here, 6 with the Iltis. In general, outside of tank CVs, you will see a much higher availability. Same with the Marder 104, you also get 6 of them. Very nice CV. 120 points, 2 top armor, autocannon for self-defense, 6 per card. The only downside being it's being tracked, so yeah. This is why I am not necessarily running it in a lot of 1v1 decks at least, but it would certainly not be like a huge downside running it. It being tracked can sometimes, especially on bigger maps, just be a slight annoyance. But it's, especially for team games, a very, very, very good CV. Arguably underpriced. But I think like a CV being 10 points too cheap or something isn't really a huge deal. Also, I didn't mention it, but as you can see here, that's a Leopard, but it's still a KPC 70 unit card. Unit cards, of course, have also not all been updated. Since that also requires a lot of work, since a lot of rerolled units, new infantry maybe used to be a tank or something along those lines. Since you can't really create new units with the way modding works. Yeah, Leopard 1, Leopard 2 CV. Leopard 2 CV also good AP, good armor, but only 155 points. If you compare it to vanilla, for 145 points you get a Leopard 1 CV. So again, significantly cheaper. And no 20 point supply truck anymore. Also, supply helicopters are significantly buffed. For 70 points you get 6200 liters. So nowadays, honestly, for 1 versus 1s, I prefer to run an expensive supply helicopter instead of a fob, unless I for sure know that I will need artillery, or that or if artillery is a very key unit in my deck, because not only does it mean you don't have to start with a fob, but if you take a look at, you get 3 of them. So while of course that's 210 points, that's also 2,600 more supply that you get. But yeah, supply helicopters definitely significantly more useful than they used to be. Infantry. Now this is also something that you will see quite often, and is also something that you, I guess you could say, have to get used to. Especially when it comes to airborne units. The transport options often suck dog shit. Suck ass, or whatever you want to say. You know, these Fallschirmjäger, which are now shock, by the way, have a Unimag transport, you know, a transport that nearly every unit gets: 2 HP, 50 kmh off-road, 5 points, 150 kmh on-road, no armor, and 2 helicopter transports, that's it. And you'll see that a good amount of times, like I said, most notably on airborne units. But like I said, at least these helicopter transports aren't completely useless anymore. But 50-man squads, by the way, also get a innate higher rate of fire on their primary weapons now. So they got a small buff compared to vanilla, which is very nice. Yeah, I think the squad, when it comes to MG sets, I'm still not 100% certain how to evaluate them. MGs in general have been standardized into like 3 or 4 stat groups, I guess you could say. So we don't really have the MG3 Mini-Me Master Race anymore. Like I said, I'm still not sure how to evaluate those, so I'm gonna not do that just yet. Fliegerfaust now has Fliegerfaust, which I don't even know what that is, because I'm pretty sure that is not a Stinger or a Stinger stat clone, because Stingers have 5 HE. Even if it was a Stinger A, it should probably also have 5 HE. So I'm actually surprised, because I was like certain that Germany used a Stinger in time frame, but maybe I'm just wrong. I'm far from an expert or any kind of authority when it comes to that. Yeah, 5-point transports basically still the same. The M113, the Fuchs also basically the same. Yeah. Heimatschützen and reservists, they have an MG now. They also have the Panzerfaust 44, and they also get a Marder 1A1A2. Hang on, let me actually go into a deck building so I can show this off. Which seems to me, at least so far, a strong combination. However, when it comes to IFVs, they now don't cost nearly as much anymore as they used to, but instead they will more drastically reduce the availability. So this IFV would cost at least 15 points and should cost 20 points in vanilla. Here it costs 10 points, but if you look at the normal availability, you get 24 and 20. With the Marder 1, you get 14 and 12. So massively reduced availability for nearly every IFV that is out there. But of course, these IFVs don't increase the price as much anymore. This is how it was in Erland Battle, if I remember correctly. Like I said, I think I've said it in a video. I'm not sure if I liked it or disliked it. It's certainly a different way. Yeah, and yeah. Then you have the Yak Commander, which I very much liked. It's a 5-man Milan squad. They also have 9 missiles. Compared to the 2-man Milan squad, which they also still get, interestingly enough. They have worse stealth, which is worth noting, but they're also faster, which I also just realized. I didn't realize before. And of course, 3 more missiles, and the 5 HP helps them surviving. But of course, on the other hand, the worse stealth means that they are also spotted more easily. They also get some different options. They get a Marder 1. I like them in the Fuchs Milan, which by the way now carries the Milan 2, which is why it's so expensive. It does have only, quote unquote, only 22 AP compared to the 24 in vanilla. However, you don't see as many high armor values nowadays, or well, not nowadays, but in this mod. So 22 AP is quite a lot. I guess if you compare it with vanilla, 22 AP might in this mod might be stronger than 24 is in vanilla. I'm not sure. It's very good, and it also has 50% accuracy compared to 45 in the mod in vanilla. Excuse me. Then we have the Jäger, which are shock light infantry, so they get 30 kmh. Pretty basic transports, pretty basic squad. Commander B1, the new special forces, the only squad with the Panzerfaust 3, I believe, in for West Germany, and they still got the G11 as their prototype weapon that didn't have a high availability at the time, and the HK23E, whatever that MG was, I don't even know. Pretty basic transports, but also pretty kick-ass squad. Panzerfaust 3 actually has more AP now, and I believe less accuracy. I think in vanilla it has 70 and 22 AP. But it's certainly a very strong squad, and only, quote unquote, only 30 points. I think in vanilla they cost 35, right? Very, very nice squad. Basic Mina 2 squad, but doesn't get the Marder, for example. I think, yeah, that's the only difference. They're the Panzergrunts, which are now your line infantry. They get a Panzerfaust 44 with improved AP if you compare them to Heimatschützen. Yeah, they also get the Marders. They also get them, yeah, they only get the ones with the Milans actually, so I guess the no ATGM one, the cheap one, I guess, if you want to call it that way, was used by the reservists or something, I don't know. Finally, the Sprengtrupp. Low range Napalm one. I haven't used them yet, they seem a bit weird, I haven't tried them at all. They have low availability, which makes them awkward, since they also only have 5 HP and are a very niche squad, so I'm not too sure about that. Certainly very flavorful. Support Gepard, like I said, many radar units now have the option to switch between radar and non-radar AA. Same with the Rolands, Lars, Mars. The Mars can switch between HE and AP. They also get access to the Hawk now. Like I said, artillery, heavy artillery, and MLRS have their aim time designated in the weapon's name. So here we have 15 seconds aim time. Here we have 20 seconds aim time. I guess in the end, sure, the Roland 2 is gone, the other Gepard versions are gone, but outside of that, basically the same support depth, except of course with the addition of the Hawk. Tanks. Now, this is weird, but apparently realistic. The Leopard 1A5, as you might see, has worse armor than the Leopard 1A4, because apparently the Leopard 1A5 is some upgraded Leopard 1A1, A1, A3 or some shit, I don't know. Whatever. Yeah. Leopard 1 line, especially the 35 points Leopard 17 AP. I'm not sure if it'll say that way, but yeah. The whole tank line seems fine, nothing out of the ordinary. Like I said, with the little experience I have, I can't really say too much about the meta game just yet. But I've been having some decent success with Leopard 1A2 spam. Leopard 2A1 and Leopard 2A4, your heavier tanks, perfectly fine. Again, both available in mechanized and motorized. Actually, the 2A1 isn't... Okay, never mind, it's also available in both. It's just that the order in which the specializations appear on the unit card is switched for motorized and mechanized. Recon tab. Fernspeer now effectively the same, they just have a different short range launcher. Recon Jeeps have good stealth now, they're very cheap. I haven't used them a lot, but they seem a pretty good deal if you can fit them in. Effectively, I mean, they have the same stealth as the BGS, the reserve Recon infantry that Germany had access to in vanilla. They have the same stealth as that squad. But it is significantly faster, of course. Obviously, it can't defend itself or even shoot at anything but it's also very cheap and ridiculously fast. So it seems like a decent deal. The Weasel, which you can also get at the CH-53. I mean, the thing is, it has only 200k kilometers autonomy, so I guess in a way it makes sense to take it with the CH-53, but the helicopter itself obviously doesn't have the stealth or the optics that a Weasel has, so I think it's a little fun unit, but meme unit, but outside of that, not very strong. Recon Leopard, Recon tanks, they usually have the same armor at the worse AP, and to show the fact that they have lower end ammunition. And they don't have stealth anymore compared to vanilla, so don't be afraid of that. They also have only good optics, and they usually don't have. They only usually come at only 2 per card, I believe. Yes, 2 per card. Same with the low end recon tanks. I think except for the very, very low end recon tanks for like 20 points, they only those get stealth anymore. Your shock recon infantry, again, those are airborne. With the base Mega model, by the way. Airborne units, so not the greatest transports. Your 5 main regular recon, they get ground transports at least. And decent weaponry, but they're only 5 men and they're only regular. You don't get the base looks anymore, only the looks A1, which doesn't strike me as the greatest deal. Yeah. We could have Jaguar and Jaguar 2. Quite a bit more expensive. Granted, the 80 gems not only is the Hot 2 significantly better with the extra accuracy, but 25 AP also does a lot more damage here. However, they also have 6 armor, but at the same time it's such an expensive unit. I think you're just better off either just taking something like a Milan 2, or maybe something like a Larotai 2 or a Tau 2 on an M113 platform, So I don't think that is. I think they could use a bit of a buff. The medium optics on the Jaguar 2 are nice, but they seem a bit too expensive to me for now. We'll see. This is a fun little unit. It also seems very strong. 10 armor, 15 AP, Brown MG3, 9 RPM, 3 HE for 25 points. Very nice. Of course, 2 AP less, no stabilizer. Also slower and bigger. One thing to note is you might have noticed this type special. Specialization is special. Support is no more. It's still called support, and I think they can't change it. But support is basically some sort of specialization now for like some weird units. That's the kind of explanation that I got. If you look at tanks, you don't really have access to a whole lot. So this is, I guess, still a prototype-ish specialization. Who knows if that'll stay? But it's not available in any of the other specializations. The only helicopter you have left is a Hot 2 helicopter. It's still decent. Air type. Now you don't get any long range or medium range anti-air missiles anymore on planes. The best you get is the KWS LV. Now granted though, since the US is the only nation that has access to medium range fire and forget missiles, being the M120 on the F-15C, I think Enhanced Eagle it's called. ASFs aren't really as deadly anymore in long ranges, and the only long range missiles you get are semi-active. So they aren't really the worst deal anymore. You can't really compare these ASFs to vanilla ASFs. So it's certainly not a bad thing. The issue, of course, is just that you have to get a lot closer to even be able to shoot at an enemy plane. But you also get a good amount of them, and in practice, this one seems pretty good. And I've never really been in a situation where I felt like they couldn't do anything because the enemy had long-range ASFs or anything along those lines. So these kind of ASFs, while compared to vanilla, might seem a bit niche. In this mod, they are perfectly fine. Of course, like I said, you have to get closer to actually be able to shoot at enemy planes. But still, they're fine. And of course, since for some nations, these type of ASFs being your main ASFs, you automatically also get Helo Hunters at least, right? So there's that. Alpha Jet now being a rocket bot plane is also faster and has ECM. It's not the worst type of unit. The D-Maverick, by the way, now has 28 AP and they don't fire in volleys anymore, meaning that it shoots one missile, reloads for 2 seconds, and then has the second one ready. Can be cursed, sometimes be a blessing that you don't waste missiles. Yeah, 30% ECM as well, worse turn radius, but also faster. Excuse me, holy shit, I'm stumbling over my words here. Also faster compared to vanilla. And the AIM-9L has 5 HE now as well. Peace Run is a bomber, 6 bombs. It's not that bad, but not the greatest. Weird kind of F4 with cluster HE mix seems again decent, but not the biggest of these. Also, they're a bit slower, 900 kmh as you might see. I believe that is in order to reflect the fact that they just carry a lot more than these ASFs or this anti-tank plane carry. I believe, or I expect these the anti-air missiles to be much lighter than the bombs, so that at least in my mind would make sense. So that might be the reason for it. ECR, it's ECR only 40% ECM. I'm not sure if there's any or many planes with 50% ECM at all. IDS, no Napalm Bomber. Napalm, I've heard, is significantly more deadly to infantry and barely deals damage to vehicles, especially if they have more than 1 armor. Then they seem to be pretty much immune. I don't know how it is in terms of morale. So I've yet to test this, but I've heard there the significant amount of damage to infantry. So this might not even be that bad, even though it might look bad, but it also has 40% ECM. And of course, MW on 4,536 cluster bombs. Of course, those are not actually 4,500 bombs in the game sense. Just like, the Marder doesn't actually have 1,245 shots. It can't shoot 1 HE 1,245 times, and that's just the ammo consumption, I guess. But it's still a lot of cluster bombs. And it does have to fly very deep though to get those off. So it kills pretty much any vehicle that is under it, but it has to get very deep. It's certainly not bad, but it's like a mix of meme and ridiculously strong. It might be way too powerful, it might be just fine, hard to say, but it's certainly a fun unit, at least if you're not on the receiving end. Let's go over to Denmark. Logistics, nothing too out of the ordinary. Denmark doesn't have its 5-pointer with 2 armor anymore, so that is actually a big deal for them. In general, you won't see a lot of 5-point transports with 2 armor and an MG anymore. That is very, very rare nowadays. So the meta also, in that respect, has a bit changed. Just by what is available. This is basically a copy of the German Airborne, except they actually get a grounded Jeep. If that's any consolation, I guess. If you look at Fallschirmjäger. Also, Carl Gustav M2 and M3 are stat clones now, because apparently the only difference is like the way they look, but they actually fire the exact same round, so they are stat clones. And yeah, they're basically the same, 15 HP. They're actually faster even, and they also get a battle rifle instead of an SMG, which is probably preferred. As it also looks like SMGs on Shock Infantry now has 35% accuracy in Stabilizer. I believe in Vanilla it was 30%. So that's also buff to SMGs, at least for... I'm not sure if it's global or only for Shock and Elite. Might have to check that. And we have the Frogman Carbine, Carl Gustav, and the same MG stat-wise that the German Special Forces get, which might be one of the better MG types. Again, I'm not sure yet. But they seem... The thing is, I think in this coalition there's no need to take them. Unless you're playing Denmark, or maybe a specialization where you get those and not the other ones. Again, just like in Vanilla, they're okay, but they're just, why take them? There's no real reason to. I guess those are your new Dragoner, Gewehrschütte, or if is it Gewehrschütte or Gewehrschütte? I guess Schütte would make sense, since Danish sounds a bit like German sometimes, and in Germany the German word would probably be Schütze, and so I guess it's Gewehrschütte. If there's any Danes watching, feel free to tell me. If there's anyone watching up until this point, anyways. Again, not the greatest transports, only in the M113, and it's like apparently all the transports you get basic M113, basic transport jeep, that truck, and sometimes the Lynx. So unfortunate. The reservists, again 10 HP. They also got an MG, but no 5-point transport with actual armor or armament, so not really the best choice. This squad basically just like vanilla, but again they get increased accuracy and rate of fire, but they're only 5 HP. So once again, not really the greatest. Those are your shock squads. I guess for 5 points more, definitely worth taking over the Gewehr Shooter, I would say, since this is just a 5-point difference, but the infantry is just so much better in pretty much every respect. But again, same very basic transports. Those seem to be the same manpads as the Fliegerfaust. No, it's actually slightly better. I'm not sure if that's intended or not, but they're still bad anyways. Support, nothing out of the ordinary. You lose the automatic, of course, you lose the Earthhawk. You get basic motors M109, but you also get this, which is a Bofors on a truck. Seems a very nice unit, has decent anti-ground range, so it's okay for supporting, for fire support. You obviously have to be very careful since you have no armor. But, and it's, I guess, new for Landjut, you actually have wheeled AA that is pretty good. So I really like this unit. You just have to be very careful that, especially if you're using it aggressively as fire support, you can lose it very easily. But seems to be a very useful unit to have. Pretty basic leopards. I think this is better than the 1A5. More armor. Yes, it actually has more armor. Outside of that, you know, it seems to be pretty much the same versus autonomy, but it's no biggie. 2 more rounds on a main gun. Otherwise, same stats, you know, except for the armor, of course. A recon tab, the M41 here, that's one of the units that I was talking about. Still has medium stealth. Not sure if it intended or not, but it seems to be a pretty good unit. 3 front armor now instead of 2, I believe. Also has 10 RPM. So if you can fit it in, it seems to be a pretty good unit. Basic Cayuse, Jäger, seem pretty fine. Again, have this 381 RPM MG. SMG with 45% accuracy. I believe in vanilla they had 40, so I guess every SMG has 5%, got a 5% accuracy buff, maybe? Would make sense, but SMGs are very good on special forces since they actually have good accuracy. You just have to be mindful of the low range sometimes, but in forest fights or many town fights, they're very nice on special forces. I would also assume that those are silenced or suppressed, whatever the proper term is. So, you know, not a deal breaker, but you know, sometimes it can be fun. Carl Gustav M3, again, low accuracy, but it still has 875 meter range, which is still very useful. And 19 AP isn't as, it certainly isn't bad in vanilla either, but it is more in the 1991 as it is in vanilla. The Fennec, unarmed but fast and cheap recon helo, a transport helo, excuse me, only is 4 HP now. In vanilla it had 6, although in vanilla it also wasn't a transport, of course. Seems okay. I used myself. They're pretty fine. Leopard 1 recon tank, again no stealth and only good optics. Another recon jeep actually has armament now for 5 points more. I'd probably stick to the Iltis. Then again, it's only 5 points more. I don't know. Both seem to be very useful. Recon jeeps in general that have good stealth seem to be pretty useful for how cheap they are. Another shock recon squad, yet again not the greatest in transport options. They don't have an MG but a sniper rifle instead. Your regular recon infantry, not the greatest transport options, but they also only get the law compared to the Panzerfaust 44. They also are cheaper, however, so yeah. Think of that what you will. Centurion in the vehicle tab, available in mechanized. Compared to the M48, I'd definitely take the M48, honestly. Same armor, same RPM. M48 is faster. It obviously has less range and doesn't have a stabilizer. But for 10 points less, I'd always take the M48. But of course, the M48 is only available in special. And we have this thing. In vanilla, you know, this quad Browning type used to be actually not be too bad, and now it actually has anti-plane range. which, by the way, nearly all Brownings or a lot of MGs have. It might still be pretty okay for that type of role. You know, Tau and Tau 2 vehicles, yeah. Tau 2 also has 23 AP, the Tau 2A, I believe, has 25. I think there's also even a Tau 2B with 26, if I'm not wrong. Planes, not too many to choose from. There's the block 10. Where to the LV, same ECM, same speed, worse air detection, does have 2 extra AIM-9Ls, but I think the air detection is actually quite a big deal and also significantly lower time over target. So I think I'd always take the LV over the F-16A. Block 10, sorry. Yeah, F-16A block 10. This is just your bomber, ATGM plane, 430 AP missiles. Again, I'm pretty sure they don't fire in volleys, but I think in vanilla in 1991 this might even be a bit overkill. In vanilla this would be amazing, but I think this might even be a bit overkill here. Especially since you also have access to the MW1, which you probably just want to run because it's a fucking MW1, the Tornado, of course. But it's certainly not bad by any means. But I think in general you won't see as many high-end tanks, so again, this might be a tad overkill. Rocket Bot Dragon, compared to the Alpha Jet, of course, significantly faster, which is, I think, what you would prefer on Rocket Bot planes. Classic Bomber, again, no need, especially since we have, for one, the MW1. Then you also have this, you know, which for the same price, of course, you have less ECM, but you also have HE bombs, which is nice. Yeah. Over to Benelux. They still have some of the transports. They still have the YPR with the autocannon. They still have a 5-point YPR with 2 front armor. They also have the Spartan, which I'm not sure if it's available to too many units. Also got a Leopard 2 CV. Also got this type of supply truck, but I think like the armor and amphibious capability, it's nice and all, but I think if you want a supply truck, you always want 150 km road speed, right? So I think that this is never really worth it. Especially, I think if they since this costs just as much as a wheeled 10-point, this carries just as much supply as a wheeled 10-point supply truck. I think if they were like one step cheaper, meaning that this would carry 800 liters for 10 points, I think this would be worth it more, because the armor, like I said, it's nice now, but the speed is so much more important. Anyways, here we have the it's hard for me to say which of these units are Belgian, Dutch, or from Luxembourg, but yeah, we have these BBE Marns, which, if I had to guess, might be Belgian. Very basic again. I don't really see the point in using them. They are 15 men, so that's nice. On 600 RPM on their SMGs, which is ridiculously high. But I think stuff like the Commandos B1, they already murder infantry well enough that there is no need for those. And we have these, which have which actually for 10 points seem to be a very good deal for me. They have a different MG compared to the other regular infantry. They have a 381 RPM, which is the same rate of fire as the one on these squads, and the other the Danish elite squads. Sorry for stuttering, Jesus. They have worse suppression, as you might see, but they also CQC and have more accuracy, even though they have a bit less range. But I feel like they might be a pretty good deal, especially since they're also only 10 points and have a decent enough anti-tank weapon. It's the only issue is that their transports aren't too great. They get a basic 5-pointer. They also get a Milan 2 transport, which I don't really see a reason to use. But unfortunately, they don't have access to the Dutch 5-point transport, probably because these are not Dutch. And considering that the name seems a bit French, I'd expect those to be from Luxembourg. Might be wrong. Corps Marinier, not elite anymore. They're shocked now. 15 men. 15 men for 20 points, but they have a very, very basic anti-tank weapons. So, and considering they don't really have like a wheeled 10-point transport, I don't really see them being worth it. I think this BV202, if I'm not wrong, I think this is supposed to I'm not sure if this is a meme or if this is something that I understood wrong, but I think there's one unit that is supposed to have snowmobiles. I'm not sure if it's this one, but there was something going on. I don't even know. Now we actually get some Stinger squads. If you want Stinger squads, we still get the fire starter squads. The only transport they get is this one, so I don't really think they're worth it. Sink. Jesus. Apple squads. But all again, airborne, I assume, so pretty bad transport options. Stortrippen now have the dragon also not being short range, but high AP. Basically like an Eric's. The Eric's, by the way, completely gone. I think they might also not be as fast as Eric's, I'm not sure, but obviously quote unquote only 20 AP. Still very nice because of the range, and again, 20 AP is quite a lot here. Yeah, they do get access to the autocannon transport and the 2 armor 5-point transport, so that's very nice. And there are the other regular squads, which are apparently the Dutch squads, also get access to those transports, but they're also 15 points. So no 10-point 2 armor transport option, which is big sad. Vorplag are still in, but not a dragon anymore, but instead a Carl Gustav. Yet another Carl Gustav Ridiculous rifle fire support squad. Another Milan 2 squad, just like the German one, just different transport options. Mistral, which is new, I guess, for this coalition. Yeah. Mistral basically the same. I'm not sure if anything changed here. Also get the Gepards, 2 versions even. So for 10 points more, you can get 20% more accuracy, which is honestly a pretty good deal. This one has cluster rounds, which I'm not sure will stay. They're also not particularly strong. They also only have 30 seconds aim time, which is bad. So I'm not sure if this will stay with these cluster rounds. But other than that, nothing out of the ordinary tanks. They also get a 2A4, still with their fancy camo net, which is pretty cool, honestly. These Scorpions get medium stealth, autocannon with the Rarden now being a decent amount better compared to vanilla. Another 2-man squad, nothing out of the ordinary. Another regular squad, another elite squad. 70% accuracy on the FALO. So that's a bit interesting. I'm not sure how strong they really are. Another weekend Jeep. Also, by the way, transport options, a lot of helicopters and this half-track and just the Jeep, so not really great either. Recon Leopard 2, Recon Leopard 1. Shock Squad with the Recon Humvee, the one that has medium stealth and good optics, so that's kind of nice. They still get the Recon autocannon tracked one, but not the wheeled one anymore. The wheeled one is completely gone. The wheeled transport, in fact, is completely gone. That I used to have access to, and yeah. Vehicles, they have whatever this is supposed to be. And of course, you can't change models, so I'd be surprised if this was actually a Kanonjagdpanzer, but maybe it is. Heat, 12 RPM, but for 30, this seems like a very bad deal for 35 points. Of course, it does have full range with heat and 12 RPM, so I guess in theory you could chip away damage of tanks, health of tanks, but it seems to be a very bad deal, honestly, if you'd ask me. Tau 2 Humvee, Laro Itau, and a Tau 2 YPR, you know, just the typical ATGM vehicles. No helicopter whatsoever, which means no Apaches anymore. And last but not least, planes. Again, bunch of F-16, HE bomber, cluster bomber, pretty basic. Basically, completely identical except for the different bombs. You know, they're not bad, but not really great either. Rocket pod F-16, worse air detection for some reason. Also worse, actually better anti-air missiles. AIM-9Ms instead of Ls, so they have extra accuracy. You know, if we look at that. Another ASF, so this one is probably the what you would take compared to the KWS LV, because it actually has better missiles, better set of missiles, and it also comes with the same availability of 3 on Elite. However, I was talking with Nick Diamond about that. So the F-16 obviously gets better missiles, 10% more accuracy, as well as 2 extra missiles. However, for one, it has worse ECM, but also it has worse air detection. The air detection doesn't seem to be as big of a deal, but honestly, I think 10% ECM is more useful than 10% on the missiles, because for one, you already come at Elite, so your accuracy is very high. Secondly, you have 2 sets on both planes, so like once you're in range, a kill, it's certainly not guaranteed, but pretty close to guaranteed. I think just because you have 2 sets of 2 missiles each, which you will basically always get off if you are in that range. So I think these 10% accuracy from 50 to 60, the difference on Elite on 2 sets of missiles is not as big of a deal, or won't really be a difference maker very often, but the 10% extra ECM might be, well, let me put it this way. The 10% extra ECM might allow you to get into the range of the enemy plane a lot more often than the 10% extra accuracy on the missiles might allow you to kill a plane that you would otherwise not kill. If that makes any sense, right? So I think the 10% extra ECM is more impactful than the 10% extra accuracy. And then of course you get a bit more time over target, you get better air detection, and you're a bit cheaper. And for some reason, the Vulcan has much higher rate of fire, but worse accuracy and worse range, which I think is not intended, or not supposed to stay. Then we have another Napalm Bomber. It's cheaper, but has same payload as the IDS, but also less survivable. And yet another rocket pod plane. So yeah, this was just a short overview because, again, I didn't play the mod as much, but I thought, you know, this is the only deck that I played a good amount of, so I feel somewhat comfortable with those. Well, yeah, I can't, you know, I'd have to play a lot of games in order to get a better grasp of what's, I guess you could say, meta. And even then, you know, for one, I might still not fully understand stuff or fully realize how powerful certain units are. And then, of course, the mod isn't finished, so things might very easily change. But this is basically meant to be an overview of all the new units, all the things that have changed. Like I said, there's virtually no unit unchanged. Like, I guess the closest thing to an unchanged unit is the Milan 2, and you know, it still has the new Milan 2 sets, right? And then of course you have to take into account that the whole tanks are differently priced, have different amount of armor compared to vanilla. Then there's the 12 HP tanks, you know. ERA is now not modeled for armor, but instead they get extra HP. You know, if there's a T-72A with 10 HP, and there's an AV that has ERA on top of it, but instead of getting extra armor, it just gets 2 more HP, you know? So even if a unit is virtually unchanged, it might still perform completely differently compared to vanilla just because everything else has changed. So yeah, pretty exciting, I guess, is a way to put it. So even though I couldn't really tell you, oh, that's good, oh, that's bad, a whole lot. I hope it was still somewhat interesting for you, and maybe you want to check out the mod or not. My throat is sore now, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll hopefully see you next time.